This is the Fundamental Escape Podcast with Mark Fitzgerald. I'm David Werba, and this is episode 21. Today's episode is brought to you by Phantom Rescue, a 911 global force that is leading the coalition in the fight against human trafficking. You can read more about them at phantomrescue.org. We have an exciting show to close out 2015 as Mark sits down with Reese Roper, who's the lead singer of the band Five Iron Frenzy. They talk about the genesis of the Christian rock genre, which in many cases was just a label placed on bands to sell more records. And to emphasize his point, there is a cameo appearance by Reese's daughter. And towards the end, Mark has a brief chat with his brother James, who was the lead singer for the band Run for Your Lives. And we include a rare cut of the song Victim of the Moon. But first, here's the discussion with Reese Roper.
Cool. Hey everyone, welcome to the Fundamental Escape Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Fitzgerald, and today I have a musical guest. His name is Reese Roper, which I'd just like to point out is aesthetically pleasing to say. So welcome to the show, Reese.
Thank you. I'll tell my parents you said that about my name.
Yeah. I like to start off the show with a compliment for the guests, so I like to make you feel good about yourself, you know?
Really nice.
Cool. So what's been happening? So just, I guess if you could give us a rundown, like to those who aren't familiar with Five Iron Frenzy, I was keen to ask you about the kind of genesis of the band and how you guys sort of formed and, you know, not a big, deep, meaningful story or anything, but just kind of the basics of how it happened and how long you've been doing music and things for.
Five Iron has been around this year. In April, we celebrated our 20th anniversary.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
Nice.
Yeah, that Keith, the original bass player, and I were best friends in junior high school and high school. So from grades, so that's like grades 6 through 12. We went to college on the same campus, and there were a couple other friends that we made along the way, and we liked music. We kind of goofed around and were in bands. We had started an industrial band, so it was metal with all the samples and drum machines and stuff, and we just kind of did it because we liked it, but really because we couldn't find a drummer. And we found Andy, the drummer in Five Iron, at a Christian rock show in this band called The Prayer Chain. And we were like, hey, you want to try being in our band? And he played so loud he couldn't hear the click track or the drums. So we ended up just goofing around and playing what we liked, which ended up being punk and ska.
Yeah.
More so than the other music, because it was just that was kind of just more utilitarian. We just did it because we couldn't find a drummer.
Nice. I have to start off. I've got a question here. I'm a twin, so my brother James, he's to be honest, he was a lot more into like punk and ska than I was. It sort of grew on me over time, but he's got a group of friends who are sort of fans, and one of the questions they wanted to ask was, will there be any more Brave Saint Saturn records?
Oh man. I guess I've never definitively said no. Hey honey, you gotta be quiet, okay? My daughter is here.
Yeah.
This
do you want to say hello?
Lennon, you want to say hi on the radio? You have to say it out loud because they can't see you.
Hi.
Say Merry Christmas to the listeners.
Can you say Merry Christmas?
Merry Christmas.
Oh, that's cool. I like that. Awesome.
I forgot the question.
Oh, we were talking about Brave. Yeah.
I've never definitively said no. There's part of me that hopes that we could still make stuff. It's just very difficult because it's difficult enough to do Five Iron. Everybody's got jobs and kids and families. So for Five Iron now, we write stuff via email. You know, we send tracks back and forth, and critique each other's songwriting and try and make the songs better.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of us have the energy to do it for two bands.
So with this songwriting, is it you're the one that does most of the lyrics, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Somehow that's about all they respect me for in 5 Hour, and they're like,
Yeah.
well, all right, we'll
Yeah.
let you keep doing
And your trademark voice, just that.
No, they don't care about that.
I think it's a pretty key element to the band, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I caught a clip on YouTube today of your Kickstarter video where you were eating a handful of mayonnaise. That actually made me nauseous to watch.
It's pretty bad.
That was horrible. That was absolutely horrible. I might link a description, link that in the description. But yeah. So I guess just to get a little bit serious, I suppose. As I mentioned, like I grew up on a diet of Christian music, like only Christian music. So, you know, Jars of Clay, Five Iron Frenzy, Switchfoot, all that kind of stuff. And you know, I'm completely ignorant of most of the secular music that was out there when I was growing up because I was in this little bubble, you know. And I was quite keen to talk to you about the whole sort of like, you know, the whole Christian sort of music scene. And, you know, when do you know that you're like, quote unquote, a Christian band? And like, what defines, you know, what's the difference, you know?
You know, I think that nomenclature came about in the late 70s and the 80s, and it was to sell records. I think that the earlier Christian record companies, they found a niche in the fact that they could create Bible bookstores and sell records in a safe way. They could sell albums, and you know it's great when you're a kid and or a grandmother and you want to go in some place and not have to figure out if like how bad the lyrics of Wu-Tang Clan are or something, you know. You just kind of trust that these people have pre-screened it for you and you listen to, you know, music.
Yeah. It's funny because I remember, you know, there was the sort of these campaigns to do with Christian music sort of in the 90s where it was like kind of directly comparing secular artists to Christian artists. It was basically saying like, if you like this band, then you'll like this band, you know? And it's just, I wonder if you find that problematic at all.
Well, so to me, I think I grew up the same way as you, in church, and I wasn't allowed to listen to secular music, or it was frowned upon. And you know, I remember my youth pastor's wife, I had gotten a Run DMC Raising Hell on cassette. Yeah, and it was, I mean, I still own it. I own it on vinyl. I think it's such a good album. But at the time, you know, I was in 8th grade, probably needed some parental guidance for that one that I wasn't getting. And she, you know, we popped it in. She had a Firebird, Pontiac Firebird. I don't know if you guys have ever seen those. It was a really cool car. And we were playing it, and she heard the swearing, and then I just saw her turn to me, pop out, and then like unravel it and chuck it on the road. It was just, I mean, that was how, and Keith, the old bass player from 5 Iron, he was in that youth group with me. That was how we were raised. Just that secular music or the general market music was going to corrupt us, and it was bad.
Yeah. Do you find, was there ever, this was a question, like this is kind of a personal question from me, because I was the kind of teenager growing up where I don't really know for whatever reason, but I tended to put Christian artists on this kind of level where I'm like, wow, like this person's in a Christian band and they do this full time and they must be so close to God, you know, like that's kind of what I did in my head. And I just wonder, like being in that industry yourself, did there come pressure with that sort of thing?
Oh, yes, definitely. And I think when we started, we genuinely had those feelings. we wanted to be that light to people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that what we saw as time passes, that most of the people that did it were phony.
Yeah.
And not just that. I guess phony in the sense that, hey, honey, you gotta be quiet.
I gotta get me.
Phony in the sense that
She's all right.
you have built up like these great images of these artists.
Yeah.
You think they're like these super Christians.
Well, the word, yeah, it's interesting you frame it like that. I mean, the word idolatry tends to come to mind, you know? It's, and I sort of wonder, I guess I don't want to get too heavy or anything, but like, I just wonder if you think, you know, being in it yourself, like, is there kind of a dark side to it, you know, that we don't really comprehend?
Definitely. And I think that was it. Like, there are some actual, still to this day, phony people that are doing it to get money.
Yeah.
Or because it's easy. I think that the in the Christian marketplace, you kind of get a leg up just by the fact that you're a Christian.
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah.
people buy your albums because you know they kind of put away their sense of taste.
Yeah.
For the fact that they're being ministered to.
I think I actually remember, I don't know if I'm getting the title correct, but there was a book I think was by Charlie Peacock called At the Crossroads or something like that. And he sort of talked about, I remember, it was years ago when I read it, but he was sort of talking about, you know, these bands that get more sort of credibility because they say the name of Jesus more and things like that. And there was all this sort of controversy of like, you know, what is a Christian band and how, you know, how explicit do you have to be about your faith to be considered in the group sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, and so that goes back to what I was talking about before. In the 70s, you had people like Cat Stevens and Bob Dylan and a lot of people, Peter, Paul, and Mary, that the stuff that they were putting out was Christian. They were believers. Johnny Cash. It wasn't, there was no market for that. It just was, hey, this is what this guy believes, and he's singing about it, no big deal. But I think towards the end of the 70s and the early 80s, there just became this industry that built around the Bible bookstore, and it created that niche whereas, you know, like there wasn't that thing. You had to make good music to get a record contract, no matter what it was about.
Yeah.
And it kind of sequestered Christianity or Christian music to being like this subculture.
Yeah. So I guess a bit of a challenging question, but like, what would Five Iron Frenzy have looked like if the Christian music scene didn't exist? Like, would they, you know, would you have survived? Would you have been around? Like, would you have connected with enough people to keep going?
I think so. I think, you know, Five Iron was unique in that in Denver where we started, we very early, like our second show, got in good with this secular promoter. And Denver is, you know, at the time it was just kind of this forgotten place for the music industry. Good bands would form there, and then they had to move away to get credibility or to get signed. So for us, every time this guy liked us, this promoter, and every time a general market punk or ska band came through, he would get us to open for him.
Yeah.
So very early, our first couple years, most of our shows were playing for all these secular bands, all these general market bands, and you can't go into a general market club and play, you know, like open up for Less Than Jake or you know, like some of the bands that we were playing with and suck. You have to be good.
Yeah.
And so it pushed us to try and be as good as they were. And I think honestly, just the feeling that if we were doing this because we loved Jesus Christ, we should try harder. And that really haunted us. So I think if there never was a Christian industry, we probably would have been better.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah. I sort of wonder, like, I guess, the question of sort of how does fame and faith play out when you're in this, I guess, of course, fame is a relative term, depending on, your circles and stuff like that. But to the world I grew up in, you guys were famous, so like, how does that play out in regards to your faith and like I say, with the concept of people looking up to you so much, and just sort of wonder, like, over the years, sort of stories and connections you've had with people, and no doubt you've heard from people what impact you've had on their lives and things like that.
Before I answer that, Lyndon really wants to tell you about her necklace.
Oh, go crazy.
This necklace is
Here,
a
hold up
star
so you can see it.
necklace, and my mom gave it to me a long time ago.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
That is super cool.
I
Cool. Now,
lost it, and I had to find it today.
Where's the keys?
Oh, I'll go.
Okay, go get it. Hey, you gotta eat the rest of your dinner.
I think this might be the cutest podcast I've ever done so far.
So the question is how fame affected us?
Yeah, how it plays out. I mean, how do you sort of, what is, like, I guess, I don't know. I'm quite curious to sort of deconstruct the idea of fame a little bit when, people are telling you, like you're selling records and this is happening and it's kind of building, and I just sort of wonder, we're trying to be serious here.
So,
I just wonder if you have some general thoughts on that whole sort of thing,
So I think a blessing for us was that we were from Denver. That hi honey. It's in the middle of the country. It just now became this trendy place because they legalized marijuana in Colorado. So now it's like a nightmare. Like the population goes up 250,000 people every 2 months.
Oh wow.
It's crazy. But in the 90s it was just kind of this place. There's in the US there's this just kind of mythos that Colorado is just this like Arctic tundra, like it looks like Hoth from Star Wars.
Yeah.
And, so nobody, like people would be like, oh cool, I want to go there and ski sometime, but not live there. And so it was just kind of this not cool place. It is a cool place to go on vacation, but no one wanted to live there.
Right.
And for us as a band, we'd go out on tour. People would love us and all this, and then we'd go back home, and nobody knew about our band.
Just back to normal life.
Yeah. And like you go to the mall in Ohio, and people would be like, "Oh, Five Iron Frenzy!" They'd recognize you. Go home. Nobody would recognize you.
Isn't that biblical, like a prophet is without honor in his own town sort of thing?
Sure. It's very humbling.
Yeah. It keeps your feet on the ground.
Yeah, and so after a while, when, people are coming up to you at shows and like, you guys are the greatest. You're like, this is surreal. Thanks. Tomorrow we got to go home.
Yeah.
Whatever you had to do at home.
Yeah.
Pay rent or get yelled at by your girlfriend.
Yeah. I'm sort of curious, like, I guess I want to frame this quite carefully in the way I ask this question, because like a huge kind of theme of my podcast, I've been going for about 6 months now, and I've talked to all kinds of different people, and a lot of the conversations I've had are sort of around the idea of people, like I'm the kind of person, I grew up, I kind of refer to myself as an evangelical burnout, like I grew up in the church all my life. I was actually like a street evangelist for about 5 years, so that's kind of, so that's me, I'm very zealous and very vocal and, very passionate person, and I just, had a number of experiences that kind of just made me question everything, basically, and again, I'm not going to go into names and details and stuff, but I was sort of scrolling through sort of Wikipedia and stuff, and it kind of insinuated that, some of the members of Five Iron, like, have had some transitions, I guess you could say, in their belief systems and the way they see life and faith. And I think one of them openly claimed to be an atheist now, according to Wikipedia, I guess. But, you know, again, I'm not keen to go into details and discuss people's lives. You know, I'm talking to you, obviously. But I just sort of wonder, like, there seems to be, you know, this huge groundswell of change, of people that have sort of grown up in the church and are restless. And, you know, I grew up in this world of absolute certainty, you know, and again, like, I think the Christian music thing kind of ties into it. It was like, we had this subculture, we had all this pre-packaged faith, you know, it was like all handed to us. Like, here's a Bible and here's a 5 Iron Frenzy CD or whatever, you know, and like, go be a Jesus follower. And I just sort of wonder, like, you know, for you personally, like, how is your faith, or has your faith kind of evolved or changed dramatically over the years?
I think, I mean, that's definitely not something we try and hide. That our drummer Andy and our bass player Scott, they both consider themselves agnostic. Okay. I think they believe in God or a higher power, but they feel like they don't know enough about that God to say, I guess, to be sure. So they're pretty much like where we are without the gift of faith.
Yeah.
You know,
and it's actually making me think. There's one of your songs, I can't think of the title right now, but there's a line and it says, perfection never was a requirement, though some might say we desired it. Yeah. You know, and it's sort of, even back then, it sort of had those undertones of kind of doubt, if you know what I mean.
Right.
And I think I like that.
I think, well, and that's something we kind of figured out early on, was the best thing that we could be was honest. So when we wrote that song, our guitar player, who's now our bass player, Scott, was totally in the throes of just this crisis of faith, where he didn't feel like he believed strongly enough to be in our band. He felt like he was lying to people. And so he actually stepped back. His last show was at Parachute, I think in 1999.
Oh, wow. That was my first Parachute.
Yeah. So that was his last show.
Wow.
And then, you know, and I think we were, I don't want to say I've arrived spiritually, like I know everything, but I think I've changed. My shift has gone from that time when he was going through those things and we were like, yeah, you can't be in the band because we're a Christian band, to where I'm like, why would I not want to hang out with my friend?
Yeah. So he was putting more pressure on himself? Is that yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of integrity, and especially somebody who's seen the inside, like the seedy underbelly of Christian music, because there are a lot of people that are faking it. And he was, you know, we were doing okay. We were making decent money. We got to go to New Zealand. We had been to Europe earlier that year, and but he really felt convicted about it. He wanted to step away.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
That's a lot of pressure. Like I mean, it's funny, I think, again, sort of going to the theme of fame and things, like you do put these people in these places where you put them as, you know, more than human, and you kind of distance yourself, and to hear something like that is quite incredible to me. You know, it's quite real and honest. And I, you know, earlier this year I spoke to an author. Her name's Kathy Escobar, and she wrote a book called Faith Shift. And she sort of starts off the book with this sort of conversation with this girl who basically turns to her and says, I don't know what I believe about Jesus anymore, and it scares me, you know? And I just feel like there's a lot of people in that place. And yeah, I've checked out like some of your sort of blogs and things, and, you know, there were sort of two things I wanted to bring up, like in regards to like 5 Iron Frenzy and lyrics and things. Like, there seems to be two main streams that come forth in the lyrics, which is like, you've got one which is your sort of hopeful anthems, like World Without End and stuff like that, and then you've got kind of these political themes and things like, the song Fahrenheit, where you're talking about Freddie Mercury and things like that. And like, it's funny for me when I look back at some of those lyrics when I was listening to them, because I really was quite sheltered and had no idea what you were referring to at the time, where you were openly talking about homosexuality and things like that, which is obviously, the game has changed drastically over the years in regards to that whole conversation. And even back then, you guys were kind of at the forefront of some of those kind of themes,
Yeah. There's also a third theme, which is just ridiculousness.
I was going to say that. Yeah, I'm glad you filled in the gap there. Yeah, I'm thinking Phantom Mullet.
Yeah.
I was just listening to that. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely. Okay, hold on. Before I go on, Lyndon has to show you two things.
Okay, that's fine. This is like a little commercial break again.
We got this kitty named Rainbows, and she's white. She got sparklers on her side.
Wow. I'm glad you're describing it for the listeners, because they won't be able to see it like I can.
And here's Rainbow Dash.
Oh,
Rainbow
that's
Dash is the My
adorable.
Little Pony, right?
I think you're going to give me a lot more listeners. I'm telling you that right now. I'm very happy. So, no, this is cool. I like this. We're kind of winding down for the year anyway, so it's actually quite nice to have a very relaxed podcast, to be honest.
Oh, good.
So yeah, I mean, I guess in regards to the themes and like, sort of political things, I think that track, go and get your riot gear and things like that. And, was there sort of a deliberate, intentional thing in those lyrics, or like, wanting to bring up certain themes or use the band as a platform sort of thing, or?
Yes. I definitely feel like that is my burden as a lyricist. I feel like I have to tell the truth. And I just think that in a lot of music, in most pop music, but especially like in the Christian subculture of Christian music, that a lot of people just shy away from dealing with political issues or social justice issues. And we strangely got popular fast, and so fast that we didn't even have to really earn it. All of a sudden it was just like, oh, everybody likes ska. Here you guys go. Here's a record contract.
Yeah.
And so we just, I think sometimes the guys in the band really got sick of some of the social justice things I was writing about. They didn't want to hear any more songs about American Indians or
a little bit preachy.
Yeah. But nobody says those things, and I just felt like somebody had to say something.
Yeah.
So that there's that stuff, and then I think, I think part of being a Christian is just the awe that just knowing that that the God of the universe actually loves you and knows you. That kind of awe, that kind of feeling just can't sleep. When I write lyrics, if I don't at least try and put my own spin or try and touch on how beautiful that is, I think I'm lying.
Yeah. I guess too, I sort of wonder, like, when you go through sort of the ups and downs of life and things like that, that sort of feeling of having to be on all the time, when you're in front of people, like if you're having a doubtful period in your life or whatever's going on, or crisis or pain or whatever it might be that's happening. I mean, have you sort of felt yourself under pressure of sort of having to put on a front and putting on a smile even when you don't sort of want to?
Yeah, sometimes. I think that's life, though. I think, I mean, everybody has things that are hurting them inside, and they have to put on a happy face sometimes, or at least just act their way through it. Yeah. But it's also showmanship. there's, I think, I guess in 5-iron we have found a good way to bridge the gap between putting on a good show and being fake. So a lot of that is just making fun of ourselves.
Yeah.
Which is fun.
Yeah. No, that's cool. That's really cool. It's interesting. I mean, it's interesting to me, the whole sort of thing, like, the whole thing of music itself. I mean, like I say, I was, the last couple of days I've been, listening to some of your tracks and stuff, just like, and it's just so nostalgic, and it just kind of, it takes you back to like periods of time in your life. And like for me, as I've discussed in different sort of episodes of this podcast, where, that whole world to me is so removed from where I am now, and it's so strange to sort of go back there and go, like, because I'm thinking about the kind of person I was, where I was so certain and so resolute about, this is what I believe, and I'm a Jesus follower, and no one's going to stop me, and like, you do get, like you say, it is life. You get crushed by certain things, and pain happens, and and again, I'm so keen to sort of reach out to people that I spoke to Brian McLaren earlier this year. He's actually in New Zealand. It was quite amazing. I got to meet him, and there's a lyrical line in one of his books where he says, maybe you've been told there's no room for you within the Christian faith, and then he says, I'm here to tell you that there is. And that, for me, like, I read that book in a time that was so, I was just broken and absolutely at the bottom. And it's interesting even thinking about music as well, how music sort of gets you through, it has that sort of emotional connection that cuts past the sort of the intellect in a way.
Yeah. I just think that's such a good testimony to the love of Christ, that you can start out best church, best youth group, whatever, something about life is going to drag you down. And like there's times when I think in my own life, I've not only just wanted to like not believe, like I've openly tried to stop, but God in his love kept bringing me back.
I totally resonate with that. My gosh.
Yeah, and I mean, it's easy to pawn off your faith as something that you got from youth group, or from camp, or from listening to Christian music, or just the feelings you had as a youth. That's fine, but I think that the faith that you have as a man or as an adult, it's tested, not just like, hey, I'm really good at this, but I think that God is real, that the Holy Spirit just keeps breathing into you, life into that, and it keeps going.
It's interesting. I think there's, the word solidarity sort of comes to mind, when you think of music and people sort of, you get a group of people and they all like the same band, and there's this kind of camaraderie and this solidarity where you're like, it's a very human thing, and you're together and you're just like connected,
Yeah.
There's no words. There are no words to kind of describe that feeling. It's kind of crazy, but I guess I didn't actually really have much else to talk about, to be honest. I was I guess I was keen to sort of ask you, like, with the whole, like 2011, obviously you guys regrouped and sort of got back together. Like, how did that sort of come about?
It's funny. So we had always talked about making as 5-iron was going, we would film things, and we kept on referring to it as like a long form video. We were going to release every year some sort of DVD, or even back when it was VHS, something that was just like this hour-long thing of us goofing around, or this is 5-iron and we do this, and it never happened, and so it just kind of morphed into this. We wanted to, by the end of 5-iron, make a DVD of kind of the story of 5-iron Frenzy. And I remember I brought video equipment and editing equipment, because I have always kind of dabbled in film and filmmaking. So I brought it on our last tour and was working on it, putting it together. After we broke up, just too much happened to where it didn't happen. And so I worked on it again for like another 7 years, just trying to slowly get to the point where we could have it. And finally just decided, whatever it takes, I'm going to finish this thing. I think, yeah, my wife was just like, get these tapes out of our basement.
Nice.
And so, I'm very, I kind of compartmentalize things. So I would just be like, if I can't finish this, I can't throw these tapes away. So I have to finish this first. And I need to, so I kind of launched into it and did that. I'm a nurse, so I was working nights. And then in the day, I would work on this DVD and get about 3 hours of sleep for probably about 4 months. And finally, we finished this thing, came out with the rise and fall of Five Iron Frenzy. It was very rushed at the end, so I can't even watch it now, just thinking how much better it could be.
Yeah.
And we had so much footage. It edited down to it's still about 3 hours long.
Oh, wow. Is this somewhere we can watch that, or is it online? Or
No, I think you can still buy it. I think you can buy it from Asian Man Records.
Nice.
We should print them again, and then you can order them from Five Iron Frenzy.
Yeah, totally.
I don't know.
I'm curious, I guess, with the things like, obviously being in the age of the internet now and things like that, has there been kind of like a resurgence of like new fans, like through online and stuff?
Yeah, I don't want to say like, oh, we're great. And that was kind of the downfall of the Kickstarter thing that started us, is we never in the time before had a moment where all of a sudden we just realized, oh, we're doing all right. Until that point when we restarted and we did the Kickstarter and we broke their record.
Yeah.
Like 3 times over. I think the band that had the record before that they had gotten like $60,000.
Yeah. You guys got like 200K, didn't you?
Yeah, it was like 210,000.
That's crazy.
Crazy. And so after that, you don't know what to think. You're like, well, maybe this is it. Maybe I can quit my job and I can do this for a living. And I think we all had better perspective on life. I think we, we had dropped out of college or come into Five Iron from high school, from 12th grade. And it was not, I guess it didn't give us a good perspective of what it is like to have a real job and really respect the fact that we got to travel for a living and sing songs. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So when the Kickstarter thing came down, we kind of were like, this is the best. We're gonna be rock stars. I think to some point, it has really been a blessing, but it wasn't that. It was more that I think we kind of fostered this amazing, really loyal fan base the first time we were around. And these dudes, for some reason, us being nerds, we tapped into a lot of people that are doctors and lawyers and computer programmers and people that have started, their own software companies and things like this. So they had quite a bit of money to spend on our Kickstarter. So that helped.
Yeah, that's cool.
I didn't finish before we were talking about how we reformed, and that I started talking about the video and got lost.
It's all right. We went on a little sidetrack.
Yeah, it's all right. That was just the short story, is that when we were making that video, when I was interviewing people, Scott, who was our guitar player and is now our bass player, he kind of was like, hey, do you ever think about doing five iron ever again? And you know, I was like, yeah, every once in a while. And he was like, yeah, I kind of do too. And the hurdle was that our bass player Keith, he just didn't want to do it anymore. I think that was the main hurdle. And then a couple days later, I was talking to Scott again, and he wasn't even thinking of these two things connecting, but he was like, you know what I really would love is just to play bass in a band and not have to think about how guitar. And he was just like, you know, that would be fun. And in my mind, it just kind of shifted into place. I was like, why don't we get Scott to play bass and just get Five Iron back together? So we all kind of talked about it, and then we were like, well, let's just, we had some money left over we were still getting royalties. So we went into the studio and recorded the one song and then did the Kickstarter, thinking that maybe we would get about half the money we needed to make an album and then spend the rest out of our pocket. So it really did come together.
Yeah, and you've just got a new EP that's been out for a little while, haven't you?
Yeah, it came out a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I saw it on it's on iTunes Music, so yeah.
Yes, I think that's the only place it is. Yeah, well, I think you can get it like on Amazon and places like that. Anywhere you can download or stream music, you can get it.
Cool. Sweet. Yeah, well, awesome. I guess the little advertisement is probably a good place to wind up.
It's called Entertainment and Stars.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Well, thanks so much for talking with me, Reese. It's been amazing. It's been really cool to chat. And if you don't mind, I might, if you could give a shout out to my brother. He's a big fan. His name's James Fitzgerald.
Right. James, this is Reese Roper, and your brother has better taste in music than you do.
Nice. I may or may not leave that in the podcast, but
do you want me to do a different one?
No, you can go again if you want. Go nuts. Yeah, we can edit it.
Hey, James, this is Reese Roper from Five Iron Frenzy, and I think you're awesome.
Yeah, he is awesome. He's in Turkey. He said you should come to Turkey, by the way.
What's he doing in Turkey?
Good question. He's teaching English, so.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm slightly jealous of him being in Turkey. I'm far more jealous of you being in New Zealand.
Yeah, on that note, we might just stop there. Cool. So yeah, we're still rolling here. I'm not entirely sure what's going on, but I've got a special guest here with me. He's actually my brother, James. Do you want to say hi to the audience?
Hey audience, how you going?
Cool. Yeah, he's pretty tired, so that didn't sound too enthusiastic, but that's all right.
I never sound enthusiastic.
That's true. You're on a podcast. Come on, turn it up.
Yeah, hey guys, how you doing?
Yeah, come on, that's it. Alrighty, so we're gonna just rush through. We've got five questions after listening to a Five Iron Frenzy podcast. So, question 1 was basically, what were your general thoughts on the interview with Reese, and do you share some of his convictions and thoughts on the whole Christian music scene as a listener of Christian music growing up?
Yeah, no, it was really interesting, to hear like his side of that whole phenomenon, I guess, of what it was to grow up in the 90s, listen to Christian music and like only Christian music, you know, like yeah, because obviously I was much the same as you, like you just listen to nothing but Christian music.
Yeah.
And for some reason it was like you thought that was like what you should do as a Christian, and that was the pinnacle of Christianity almost.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Was like surrounding yourself constantly in this Christian thing, and like people who listen to secular music were obviously not as Christian as you were. So
yeah, I
think
I do remember looking down on you slightly for buying an Alanis Morissette tape back in the day.
Oh yeah, Jagged Little Pill. That was my first tape. I forgot all about that.
Yeah,
what a hypocrite.
I know, it's funny. I was actually going to talk to you about that. I was like, we didn't exactly share the same convictions, but I did mention to Reese that obviously you were more of a punk ska kind of fan than I was growing up. And I was just
man,
curious to ask
experience.
why do you think that music took off in that era the way it did?
Oh man, I don't know. I guess it was because it was like a little bit rebellious almost, you know, like you could it was still Christian, but you could kind of it was sticking it to the man in a
Like fun
you know, in a
rebellious.
good fun rebellious in a good Christian way, but you're still kind of I don't know, you know, raging against the machine almost like this. You know, these kind of stuffy adults who are above you who are that all they're listening to is like Michael W. Smith or something, you know, but we're here as like, yeah, we're hardcore Christians and we're here moshing and you know, skanking to Five Iron Frenzy and to the Supertones and MXPX. And so it was, I guess it was our little fun way of being rebellious.
Yeah.
You know,
No, for
I
sure, for
guess.
sure. So, this is the most important question of the day, which is, so I wrote a blog the other day and actually reflected on the time that you and I decided to cut the cord of our TV because it was taking too much of our lives away. You actually wrote the infamous song that TV makes me sick. And I think that was the title. I was just wondering if that song had the desired effect on the modern culture that you hoped that it would.
Yeah, not really. I mean, it wasn't as far-reaching as I would have liked. But in fact, now I would like to forget it, to be honest. But yeah,
The television's
I
almost
don't-
redundant now anyway, so would it be like
yeah,
Facebook makes me sick or something like that?
probably, I guess. I mean, but I can't really say that. That'd be very hypocritical because I'm on Facebook every day, you know, all the
Oh
time.
dear.
So, but yeah, no, it was pretty funny times, and probably honestly, I could say that I got a lot of my inspiration for that song from Five Iron Frenzy. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
At least the message behind it, anyway. I
That was
guess.
epic.
Maybe not.
Yeah. So, yeah, we did talk a little bit seriously on the interview about the whole kind of Christian subculture. And, you know, I think it was amazing how Reese was quite open about sort of the dark side of it. And, you know, he quite openly said that he knows a lot of people in the Christian scene that are phony and fake and just basically like doing it for money. And I just sort of wonder, like, if you had any thoughts on that, like is it I guess we, you know, like you said earlier, like, we were kind of handed this idea that, yeah, we're in this little Christian bubble and that's all we have and that's the way it should be, sort of thing. But like looking back, I wonder if you have any alternative thoughts on that sort of idea.
Yeah, I don't know if it was so much that we were handed it or that we kind of took it on ourselves a lot in a way. I remember being very passionate about it and probably more so than a lot of, you know, the older generations and adults and stuff. Like I was like, yeah, man, Christian music, this is what it's all about. But I did find it very interesting when he said about, you know, the record companies just basically just saying, well, you know, this is a way to sell records and we can do it in a safe way and whatever. I found that very interesting that it's when you're a kid growing up in that environment, it's easy to miss that it's basically just marketing and it's just a way to sell albums. But when you're a kid, you're like, nah, man, these people are clearly loving God and loving Jesus and it's not about the money, you know, they're not sellouts or anything. How could they be sellouts? But
There was
yeah,
something
like,
I have to say, I guess, you know, on the subject of Five Iron Frenzy as a band, to me, they did stick out looking back, you know, like they did when you look at their
as
lyrics.
sellouts.
What's that?
As sellouts.
No, I mean as authentic, you
No.
know.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I remember hearing some stories about them at like Parachute and stuff and like some of the stuff that was going on backstage.
Oh, like
and I was
having
just
beer and stuff backstage.
Oh, yeah, more
I was...
worse than that.
Oh, really? Whoa, this is getting controversial. I might have to do a second interview with Reese and chat him up about
Yeah, you
that.
probably should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, fair enough. But no, I mean, we did talk about, you know, like, you know, I was quite diplomatic in the way I brought it up, but like I'd read online how, you know, some of the members aren't even Christian anymore. And he was, he was quite upfront about that, and I thought that was quite interesting. And how there was one particular guy in the band who was basically putting more pressure on himself. I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah.
And he was just like, why can't I just be in a band with my friend?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that was the danger of the whole, this Christian bubble in the 90s and early 2000s of like, well, you're either 100% or you're not, and like, and you're either a Christian band or you're not. And any of these bands who are kind of saying, oh, we're Christians, but we're in a band, we're not a Christian band, are selling out.
It became this kind of silly thing, like a witch hunt in a way.
Yeah. And like, there's just so much pressure and I think like that whole attitude forced a lot of hypocrisy and a lot of phoniness,
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess the closing question is a personal one for yourself. Now, you've obviously been in a couple of bands over the years. Do you miss it? And do you see yourself doing it again someday?
Yeah, man, I miss it big time, eh? I've been asked to play with a couple of bands and stuff here in Turkey, but like I don't even have my own guitar and I don't even know where to start here. Like I don't know how to play Turkish music for one thing. We'll
start a Kickstarter campaign for you.
Yeah, get me a guitar. No, but I'm like, I don't know how long I'm going to be here. I don't want to buy a whole bunch of cack and, end up with all the stuff that I have to cart around wherever I end up next. But, I miss it big time, eh? And I especially miss playing with the boys back home, like Ben and Sam and Phil and stuff. Like, it's such a good thing. Like, just we're hearing Reese saying, oh, why can't I just play with my friends? It's like, I miss that. More, I miss the practices of just hanging out and goofing around and, having good times, not even really practicing songs. I miss that more than actual shows,
Yeah.
I'd hope to do it again someday, but I don't think I could ever actually commit, a good amount of time to it. It's not really, like I'm passionate about music and I love music, but I don't think I'm passionate about being a music like a star or anything, it's not me.
Well, I guess with your permission, we might close out the podcast with the classic "Victim to the Moon."
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's do you want to talk about that song a little bit, and then we can play it out?
Oh yeah, man, it's so long ago.
Did you write that song? Or?
I think Sam wrote the lyrics. I think I helped him a bit. There was definitely a lot of collaboration. Phil wrote most of the music, and it was definitely a big collaboration of everyone's kind of input, except for Ben. Ben never really collaborated anything. But I guess like "Victim to the Moon" was just it was an anthem of that kind of time, because it was about what I was talking about. Just good times with your friends.
Yeah, it's nostalgic.
And, the times that you'll never forget and and music played a big part of our lives in that time. It was kind of what brought us all together all the time, playing shows, and we're all in a bunch of bands together, and it's just the times that you'll never forget. So it's cool, man.
Cool. So this is "Victim to the Moon" by Run for Your Lives. Enjoy, peoples.
These are the times I won't forget, with all my friends I hold so dear. So close, so near. I feel the love, I feel the joy, I feel the warmth that's in this place.